Excuse me, is this seat taken? The man's heavy-lidded brown eyes regarded him for only a second before returning to his phone screen. Eric was used to that. No one ever paid him a second look. Yeah. No, it's not. Feel free. He lowered himself with care behind the desk and immediately pushed back his chair to give himself room. From the time he was in college, Eric always had trouble sitting in lecture halls and classrooms. The seats weren't made for people who didn't have skinny, perfect asses. Like the man next to him. Whatever. He hung his jacket on the back of the chair and set a bottle of water on the desk. He really wanted a soda, but felt it would be counterproductive to the class, considering he was here to discuss better eating habits and proper nutrition. The instructor, a tall and of course well-built young man no more than 25, strode into the room, flashing a bright smile. This was who Eric was supposed to unburden himself to about his eating problem and who would teach him proper nutrition? I have Pop-Tarts older than him hiding in my kitchen cabinets, he muttered. The man next to him smothered a laugh. Shit. He hadn't meant to speak out loud. That wasn't really nice, huh? The truth hurts sometimes. Eric allowed himself a cautious smile, one he could pull back if the man chose not to return it. Right? He's perfect. That smile, the body. The man chewed his full bottom lip, and Eric watched him, fascinated and a bit turned on. What he wouldn't do to kiss that mouth, just once. Great. Food deprived and sex starved. The perfect personality combination. But he hadn't had sex in so long, he wasn't sure he remembered what it felt like. And even if the man wasn't gay, aside from his work colleagues, it was the closest he'd been to anyone in months. He allowed himself the fantasy of this beautiful, thin man wanting an overweight librarian like him. What does he know about people with issues? I bet he can eat anything he wants and still look like that. But you're thin too. You don't have a problem. The man's warm expression froze, and he gave a chilly half-smile. Yeah, no problems here. He turned away, presenting a rigid back and stiff shoulders that screamed, "Leave me alone," and rummaged through his jacket pockets. More than anything, Eric wished he could yank those words back and continue joking. He didn't know how to talk to people. He dealt with silence and whispers all day. Full-blown conversations weren't part of his repertoire. The class started, but Eric hardly concentrated on the instructor's introduction. He'd heard it all before. At age 36, he'd gained and lost more pounds since high school than the man next to him probably weighed in total, although with his zip-up hoodie over his sweater, it was hard to tell. Definitely less than him, Eric knew, from the sharp angles of the cheekbones that jutted from his pretty face and the edge of a collarbone he'd spied peeking out of the open-neck sweater he wore. The instructor began the lecture, and Eric transferred his attention to him instead of his good-looking neighbor. I'm Dave. I used to be almost 300 pounds until I found myself unable to walk up a flight of stairs without gasping for air. It was then I knew I had to change something. Shocked at Dave's revelation, Eric felt bad about assuming the man had no idea what it meant to have a weight problem. He was as guilty as anyone else, prejudging based on appearances alone. And Eric could relate to everything Dave said. What saved Eric was his height. At almost 6'3", he carried his 285 pounds a bit better than someone several inches shorter. It's imperative to know what makes up the food we put into our bodies, and to understand that if we feed the body junk food, foods high in sugar and fat with no nutrients, we aren't giving it the proper fuel to last us through the day. That's why we overeat, to compensate for the empty calories. If you cut out the snack foods, the processed foods, and junk, replacing them with healthy foods high in nutritional value, you'll feel better and most likely lose weight. But this isn't only about losing weight. You have to learn how to build a better you from the inside out. Despite his misgivings, Eric listened.